Hello and welcome to Complexity Limits Guide for the Heroic Vexiona encounter, written and produced by Crzypck in coordination with Complexity Limit, brought to you by GameStop. Vexiona is a 3-phase encounter. You'll alternate between Phase 1 and Phase 2 until the boss reaches 40% health, and at that time you'll enter Phase 3. You'll also have various adds to contend with throughout Phases 1 and 2. You'll begin the encounter fighting both Vexiona and one Void Ascendant add. They should be tanked on top of each other, but facing different directions. Face the boss to the right-hand side from where you run in, and tank the add facing the front edge of the room. Void Ascendants do a large frontal laser beam aimed at the current tank, so you'll want to make sure that's facing away from the raid. Everyone else should be loosely spread to the boss's side, with range 9 to 10 yards apart from each other. We recommend DPS start on the add and kill it ASAP, and then swap to Vexiona. While you're in Phase 1, there are several abilities from the boss that you'll need to deal with. First, she'll periodically cast Encroaching Shadows on 3 players, which immediately does a small amount of damage to everybody within 9 yards of you, and then after 8 seconds the debuff will expire and leave a void puddle on the ground. These should be dropped near the back of the room. Just as a note, these can actually be dropped on existing puddles, so you should prioritize doing that if possible. The boss herself also does a Frontal Cone Breath ability at the current tank. Nobody but the tank should get hit by this, as it applies a permanent stacking dot called Void Corruption. 1 stack per tick of damage taken. She'll also periodically cast Despair on the current tank, which deals moderate ticking damage every second for 6 seconds. When it expires, it'll explode and deal damage to everybody else in the raid, but with a twist. This explosion's damage is scaled to deal 90% of your tank's missing health. Therefore, your healers will need to make sure the tank is kept as close to full health as possible during Despair. If they don't, this ability can very easily wipe your raid. Vexiona's final ability in this phase is creating a Dark Gateway, which will spawn 3 types of adds: a caster, who will need to be interrupted, a cultist, who just needs to be tanked, and a soul carver, which is basically just a rogue. The tank who had been holding the Ascendant is going to want to pick up the cultist and the caster and bring them under the boss for cleave. The Soul Carver just needs to be nuked. Now, back to the Void Corruption debuff for a second. This is an infinite duration, and it'll stack very quickly on the tank from Vexiona's Frontal Breath ability. Eventually, the damage from this dot will become unhealable, so you'll need to remove it somehow. Fortunately, the Ascendant adds come in really handy here. When they die, they'll leave behind a Gift of the Void, which is basically a little void orb that the tank can pick up between breaths. This orb, when used, will clear all stacks of Void Corruption. We recommend the tank grab this immediately after the 3rd breath from Vexiona ends. When Vexiona reaches 100 energy, she'll fly up into the air, summon a bunch of adds, and then morph one of these new adds into a Void Ascendant. Tanks should pick up the adds, and all DPS should focus target the Ascendant down. When that dies, the Vexiona tank should grab the orb immediately to clear their stacks again. You'll also have to keep dealing with Encroaching Shadows during this phase. During Phase 2, Vexiona will periodically do a flyover of 1/3 of the room, front, middle, or back, breathing void flames over that third. You'll need to move out of whichever third she's flying down so you don't get hit by this, or you'll probably just die. She'll do 3 flyovers total, then land and restart Phase 1. You'll keep repeating back and forth between these 2 phases until she reaches 40% health, which will trigger the start of Phase 3. In Phase 3, everybody is going to gain a stack of Void Corruption anytime you take damage from any ability. You'll also need to find a best friend and stay within 6 yards of them for the entirety of the phase. If you're ever alone, you'll lose 100% of your haste. She'll continue casting her Frontal Breath ability and Encroaching Shadows during this phase, as well as gaining a couple of new abilities. First up is Heart of Darkness, which deals massive AoE damage to everybody, but is reduced by your distance. This is denoted by the orange and purple circles under the boss. You'll need to make sure that you aren't standing in the animation when it's over, or you'll die. If you're not within 6 yards of a friend when the explosion happens, you'll also be feared for 8 seconds. The other new ability for Phase 3 is Desolation. It's a soak circle which is cast on the current tank. After 5 seconds, it'll explode, dealing massive damage and applying 30 Void Corruption stacks, but split evenly among everybody hit. If less than 3 people total soak this, it's immediately cast again, and the boss will get a 100% damage increase buff. You're going to want as many people as possible to help soak this. We recommend using Bloodlust at the start of this phase. Healers are going to want to use raid cooldowns later on in the phase, as the damage will start to ramp up very quickly. You'll want to prioritize using raid cooldowns when Heart of Darkness is going off. This phase is essentially a race to kill her before she kills all of you. Thanks for watching. We hope you found the guide helpful. If you'd like more details on this encounter or how it works, please click the link below to our written guide. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also find the rest of our Ny'alotha boss guides right here on our channel or at complexity.gg. For more content like this, follow Complexity on Twitter and subscribe to their YouTube channel. To keep up with Limit's race for world first, follow them on Twitter. Happy raiding!